Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here and welcome. I'm Julia. I'm a business specialist here in Actio. Actio is a tech company, and we are focused on tools that increase corporative performance and help the executives to achieve their goal. I'll be your host for today's event. Before we start, I would like to share a few information with you so we are all on the same page. Our meeting will last around 1 hour, and if you're interested, we will be giving you a certificate of attendance. Um, we will send the link for you to get your certificate here in the chat, and all you have to do is fill that out so you can get your certificate later. Also, if you are interested in having a one-to-one session with our CEO, we will also leave a link in the chat so you can schedule a meeting and we will talk more into your scenario and how Actu can try to work together with you to improve your results. Um, we will follow an agenda of a few questions being asked to our guests. And later on, you'll be also able to ask your own questions. You can send the questions in the chat or via Slido. And in the end of our discussion, I'll be reading your questions for our guests to answer. Please feel free to interact with us. You can send reactions, you can send comments or questions in the chat. Don't be afraid. Mari is the one who is sharing the link. She works here with us. She's also a business specialist, and she will be interacting with you via chat. And let's welcome our guests. I would like to first introduce Guilherme Barbassa. He's our Actio's CEO. He's a renowned consultant with over 2 decades of experience. And as I said, he runs Actio here. And also Mukom Tamon. He's the founder of the Chief Excellence Officer Academy, where he helps managers transform strategy into excellence using OKRs. He also invented the OKR Quality Matrix and the OKR Activation Canvas. So welcome. Thank you for being here. And let's get started.
Thank
Guilherme,
you.
thank you. Before we dig into what's the future of OKRs, can you give us some background on it and why this is so relevant nowadays?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Julia, for your kind introduction. Um, I believe most people here are already familiar to OKRs if they don't actually even use it on a day-to-day basis. So I'll be brief here in this description. OKRs are not new, right? So they come from MBOs, that are methodology that was introduced in the 50s. And we had this new uh, envelopment of OKRs or this new trend coming out from 1999 uh, when OKRs were implemented in Google, and that set out a whole new trend that is still ongoing today, and we see a big wave of interest on OKRs since then, right? Um, and OKRs are strategic execution methodology. It has some differentials with what we see in other methodologies. It's focused on desired outcome. It works with measurable results, right? So that's very important. The objective should be the outcome that we expect in the end, and the KRs or key results must be measurable. But again, I'm not going to go into too much detail of how here because the webinar is focused on what's next, right? What's coming um, through the next months and years. Um, but just to sum up here, OKRs are a few pillars that should be mentioned. Um, they focus on they have a pillar of accountability and transparency. So who's accountable for this result, and everybody's seeing the OKRs for the projects, the transformational projects, the department squads, and so on. So very visible. Usually shorter assessment periods, So you don't run OKRs too long without having assessment on what's going on and how are um, the key results performing, right? And they have also a very interesting inspirational or motivational aspect to it, right? It's not just a budget or a goal that you have to meet. It has all this inspirational aspect of moonshots, of going for what is perceived as a challenge, but not with the same approach as a budget or a goal on a KPI, right? Um, I just touched on a few points, Julia. I don't believe the point here is to
Yeah, no,
detail, right?
I think that's awesome. I think you could give us an overview of what we are going to be talking about.
Mhm.
And I think that's really interesting how this methodology has been developing over the years, and people have been more and more interested in it. Mukom, since the OKRs have been trending lately, what is the problem or job that the OKRs are supposed to solve and whom for?
So thank you, Julia. And that's an important question to kick this off with, because if we're going to talk about where OKRs go next, we must understand the problems that OKRs are meant to solve. And I'm going to take a jobs to be done perspective here. And the idea here is that everyone hires products or services to get a job done in their lives. So fundamentally, the unit of productivity within any organization is the team and its manager. So OKRs are one part of a solution that a manager of a team hires to get the job of translating vision or strategy into results through my team. And if I'm a frontline manager, how do I know that I'm doing this job? Look, what's the job again? To translate strategy and or vision to results through my team. I've not mentioned anything about OKRs. So OKRs is just one methodology that I can hire to help me do that job. I can also hire 4DX, I can hire Hoshin Kanri, or simply whatever new methodology comes. That is the job that will never change. 100 years from now, a manager's number one job is going to be translating strategy into results through their team, to excellence through their team. Now, if I'm doing this job well, and this is important because it's going to help us understand where the weaknesses or where the opportunities for development of OKRs are, how do I know as a manager that I'm doing a great job? The very first thing is that everyone on the team understands what the number one priority of the team is. Team here could be a division or the whole company, but I want to function on a group of people that create, deliver, and capture value. So every one of them understands what the number one priority of the team is. The second thing is they have a very clear set of criteria that independently they can use every day to decide what to do and what not to do. In fact, what not to do is even more important than what to do, because one of the benefits of OKRs is focus. And that is because it should give the people on the team independently a set of criteria to decide what not to do. And then finally, my boss, whether it is the board of directors, if I'm the CEO, or SVP, if I'm a director, etc., should be confident that my team is working on delivering something that lies within the strategic choices that the company has made. Right. So that's exactly. So I could say, in a nutshell, OKRs are a tool that a frontline manager hires to get the job of translating strategy into excellence through the team. And specifically, what they bring is they bring strategic clarity at the level of the team. Because, quite often, the strategic objectives created by the board or the CEO, they could be all up, fluffy up in the air. But for a team to execute with excellence, they need something that articulates that strategic objective in terms that are meaningful to the work that they do day in and day out. And that's where OKRs are coming.
Yeah,
Perfect.
That's very interesting. One aspect that you mentioned, but I like to reinforce, is the alignment in the team, right? So everybody knows what their OKR is, and they naturally focus on that without the manager having to do like the micromanagement of work, day-to-day work, like you should do this or you should do that. You just put out the OKR there, and people knowing what is expected of their work, of their deliverable, will naturally put effort into that, right? And that really joins teams uh, on their common goal, right? That is an aspect that I find fundamental and in line with tendencies, just general management tendencies of self-alignment and more autonomous work in the front line, and not the typical, boss employee kind of relationship and micromanagement. So that is an aspect that I think helped a lot OKRs go into this hype that they are today, because it really fits with today and the future's management models, right, of autonomy and so on.
Yeah,
That's
and
that's an excellent
especially,
point. Go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, thank you. And especially when talking about young people that are now becoming professionals, I think that's really important because it gives us some autonomy and also self-development to become better professionals later on. So as you've been saying, it's a way to become proactive and to do things on our own and to explore, knowing where we have to be and what we have to get done, but also helping us to grow as professionals. So we have leaders as inspirational, as role models, but we also have the opportunity to learn and to have our own project guided by someone. So that's really interesting and really cool about the OKRs.
Yeah.
Um,
I think your comment is very pertinent, because this generation that is in the workforce now and starting to assume leadership positions, it OKRs and this autonomy that OKRs give to, the teams fits very well with the expectations of this generation. And this is the generation that is starting to assume leadership roles now, but they will be the directors, the presidents in a very short time, right? So it's a very good fit with their expectation, their mental model of work, right?
So if you permit me, let me throw a spanner in those works for a moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something specific or inherent to OKRs that make it more amenable to autonomy?
I just not about the methodology itself. I believe maybe about how it is implemented.
Exactly.
Not the descriptive methodology, but the way it's implemented in companies.
So I like the fact that you pointed to how it gets implemented, because at the risk of, I don't want to be like an OKR fanboy. I'm a realist. My goal is to help managers be excellent. OKR says, and so the thing is that if you do OKRs right, you're specifying an outcome. For a very long time, most of the other methodologies have not been, specify the outcome and not the mechanisms. I think that is what makes it easy for managers to be able to say, okay, by the way, we sat down together, we crafted these outcomes. Please, there is nothing in this OKR that tells you how to do it. That's for you to figure out. I think that is what enables that kind of autonomy, because to specify an outcome, say absolutely nothing about, we're not prescriptive about how you're going to accomplish that outcome. And then that's what enables people to go out and be autonomous.
And going back on the generational expectations, I've seen people actually quit jobs because they don't feel that they have that level of autonomy, or they have to follow some, micromanagement, or people that want to describe how you have to do the job and not just ask for the outcome, right? So this, for me, this is one of the main factors that led to this trend of OKRs today.
I 100% agree. I see it as a methodology when you can put together the inner journey out of the people that are working with you, as well as the outer journey as professionals, their dreams. But it's really important for us to remember that in the end of the day, we still have an objective that we want to achieve. So it is important to align the process and the execution. Can you tell me, Mukom, a little bit about what you consider that are bad OKR practices, and what are some tools that we can use to make the most out of this methodology?
Where do I start? So okay, let me pick the three. I've been doing OKRs for about 4 or 5 years now. And before that, I came from the world of the 4 disciplines of execution and Lean Six Sigma. And I think the top 3 that are most damaging, they're quite subtle. The very first one is when people want to do OKRs, they start by brainstorming an OKR. That's the worst possible thing to do, right? And because tied to that idea that if I want to do OKRs, I should brainstorm it, that we quickly jump to, if I can brainstorm it, let me just ask ChatGPT to give me an OKR. And by definition, when you do that, you end up with a mediocre OKR. If you understand how AI works and how brainstorming works. What is missing is operational context. And I'm going to talk about a tool. How we provide that kind of operational context, which you can then use even with AI to come up with something more appropriate. The second problem is it still builds upon the idea of, autonomy, is that it is very fast. I know I'm an OKR coach and consultant, right? Do not ever leave your OKR program the primary responsibility of a consultant or even an internal OKR coach. If there's one thing I know from my experience and my practice, is that the competitive advantage of every organization lies in the quality of its frontline managers, right? You can have the most brilliant CEOs in the world. If your frontline managers are incompetent or mediocre, you're not going anywhere. But if you have competent frontline managers, that's the kind of person I call a chief excellence officer, right? They can take a mediocre strategy and do amazing things with it. So it comes in here. A big mistake I see is when especially CEOs want to do this thing, they go say, we're handing it to this consultant or this internal champion. Go make OKRs happen. No, don't do that. Make OKRs the responsibility of the frontline managers. The coach like me or the internal champion should be there to help the frontline manager. And there's 2 reasons. One is skin in the game. I'm a consultant, right? If you are lucky, I'm ethical enough, I want to see you succeed. But I'll never have as much skin in the game as a frontline manager. Because if this thing fails, they're the ones who are going to lose their team. They're the ones who are not going to get promotion. They're going to deal with it, right? So they have skin in the game, but also they understand they're the ones who deal day to day with the frontline individual contributors who will be designing, creating, marketing, selling, and supporting the products that make the organization, thrive. So frontline managers are if you're talking about the people, the most important entity in OKRs is the frontline manager, not the consultant, not an internal coach. And the third thing that I'll say is there's a whole trend of, okay, we've got these OKRs. Oh, by the way, maybe we went on an offsite, we spent 1 week, we have, this is beautiful OKR. And then, what happened, because this happened to me too, you come up with this OKR and then everyone celebrates. And then it seems as if after you wake up from your celebration and 11 weeks have passed and you've done nothing, right? It is because what we call the set it and forget syndrome of OKRs. And the answer to this is something I call activation that I'm going to talk to you about. So do you guys want to jump in there before
I think that you made excellent points that OKRs aren't something separate from work. They're a way to do your work, right? So you can't outsource that to a consultant. You can't outsource your own work to the consultant because it's a way you're planning and following up on your own work, right? So this is an excellent point because we see this a lot in the market, right? People that offer, I'm going to implement OKRs in this organization as if it were a strategic plan, where you come up with a report, I don't know, and deliver a report. That is not going to happen, right? It's much more, I will teach you how to do it, then I will do it for you, right?
So I call it building the capability so that the frontline manager can do this. In fact, when I do coaching and consulting engagements, I say, my goal is that by the third cycle, your manager should be able to get the team together, craft an OKR by themselves without me. That's how we define success, right? And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to teach them what I call my SPAN process, which addresses most of the weakness that I've experienced myself, right? So here are some 5 ideas that we need to start considering towards, we're moving towards a theme of, what is the future of OKRs like? So here's some 5 ideas that we have to start considering. The first one is center your OKRs around managers, not the consultants and not the coaches. We already talked about that. And then the second one is that there is an obsession in the OKR industry with outcomes over output, right? It sounds really good, but in reality, there's a lot more nuance. And the reason I often ask people is this. Taking any company in the world, let's take Microsoft, since we're on Microsoft Teams. If there was no strategy at all, would people be coming to work at Microsoft? Of course they would. Would they be creating value? Of course they would, because Microsoft Excel is a giant business on its own, right? Someone still needs to maintain Microsoft Excel. And quite frankly, there's tons of work that might result in no output now, because just being able to sustain the status quo is valuable enough. So the idea of being militantly outcomes over outputs it does not work like that in practice from lines. So that's an idea we have to move away. So we move from outcomes over outputs to what I call benefits of value. And when I say value, what do I mean? Is the benefit that a product or a service can create relative to the costs of acquiring it. Right. Good. Now, the third thing is we have to become less obsessed about OKRs and become more obsessed about the OKR process. Right? I mean, this is one of the most popular things of the recent times is from James Clear, who says that if I'm going to paraphrase him, we don't rise to the level of our OKR. We fall to the level of our OKR process. So OKR capability is a function of, is there an OKR process, a repeatable OKR process that the managers can go through? And at the end of it, they say, we've been able to transform this strategy or vision into results through our team, and we can do it all over again. And then the fourth and the fifth one, this one's are tied. I often say in every OKR implementation, there are 2 natural enemies in every company, and those are HR and finance. Can you guess why? Especially in terms of OKRs.
No, tell us.
No, HR and finance, because HR has this natural tendency to, let's use OKR as a performance appraiser. And and then if you do that naively, you just kill OKRs before they begin. Now, say you're lucky enough and you can put HR at bay. The other person waiting for you is the guys in finance and the annual budgeting process. Because what is the whole point of planning on a quarterly basis and saying you're going to be agile and change if you're forced to create a budget in November and you have to stick to it through the year, right? So these are 2 things that have to change if OKRs are going to, realize their full potential. We can't afford to let HR come in and say, let us use them directly for performance appraisal. And we have to do something different about the budgeting process. Now, it does not mean that you go and separate OKRs completely from performance appraisal. Absolutely not. They just become an input, not take the raw scores of OKRs and use them for performance appraisal. Of course, I don't need to say at this point that going along that theme, the idea OKRs are a team sport. So there's nothing like individual OKRs within an organization. I mean, as a father, as an entrepreneur at home, you can do what we call personal OKRs, but within organizations, as much as possible, avoid individual OKRs. They're not worth it.
Yeah,
And the last thing I'll add here is that, it's something that I'm sure you're going to talk about is, look, not every team in a company needs to be using OKRs at the same time. Not all the work of the company is going to be covered by OKRs. So there needs to be a balance between those things that are in the world of the OKR and those things that are outside of the world of the OKR. Because without that balance, you're just going to have a crash.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's really hard for us to kind of understand how can we make this happen, because sometimes we just get lost in our priorities and it's hard to identify what should actually be the objective. And even more than that, besides strategy, what should be done for me to achieve my OKRs, in your opinion, Guilherme?
Yeah, I get a different take on your question. I'd expand it, Okay, OKRs help strategy execution, but what else is there, right? So Mukom mentioned that OKRs is another tool within a set of tools and management models and methodologies that the company must integrate, right? And this is becoming a little bit of a problem because OKRs are very good to dealing with transformation, right? With new things, uncertain things. But the companies don't live just out of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They need to produce. They need the operations to deliver results, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the steady production, day-to-day routine that outputs the company's products and services the company's clients. Those practices, OKRs aren't actually the best tool for that. You have, continuous improvement, you have KPIs, you have standardization, you have a series of methodologies and tools that will help complete a management model in a company, right? OKRs aren't the beginning and end of all, right? It's another tool that you must have in your toolkit
Mm-hmm.
to extract the most result out of your company, and you should know where to apply it, right? And when to apply it. So this leads to, I guess, the topic of the webinar itself, that is the future of OKRs.
Mm-hmm.
My perception is that many companies adopted OKRs as an isolated methodology. Like, let's implement OKRs. Here are the steps, create the teams, bring in the coach, and develop the strategy execution cascading using OKRs. And that's very good and very well. But that should be integrated with other methodologies that have other purposes within the company and not create a silo of information within OKRs, like you isolate OKRs from the rest of the company. Companies have, as I said, operations. They have risk management. They have people management. They have budget. as Mukom mentioned, right? And these things must talk to each other. They must be integrated into a rational model, right? Budget should be changed. I agree completely with what Mukom said, because it's an integrated model. It doesn't exist independent of OKRs, and OKRs don't exist independent of people assessment, that don't exist independent of operations. So my vision of the evolution of OKRs is the integration with all of these other methodologies and tools that already exist in the companies, and the connection between them. So budget should be revised as frequently as the OKRs are revised for them to actually connect. When I look at the performance of a team, I should assess not only how are they going on their transformational efforts, but also on their routine deliveries and standard processes that they execute. And this integration, it's not just a information integration, it's a methodology integration, right? Things should be planned to be like that, right? That's my 2 cents on what is the future of OKRs, or what should we expect on for the next months and years about OKR, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
so did you want to, how much time do you still have?
I was about to ask if you have some tools that you can show us that can help us on the OKRs.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to do. So quickly share my screen. So talking about integration, like I said, one of the worst problems that happens in OKRs is that people start by brainstorming. That is not where you start. If you want to do OKRs right, you cannot afford to start with brainstorming, because if you start with brainstorming, you're going to fall into the trap of silos that Guilherme just talked about. So what I advocate is that you create operational context. Can everyone on the team describe, at least on one piece of paper, this is how we create, deliver, and capture value, and whom for? So when I work mostly with teams, and this is a tool that I created to serve that purpose, it's called the SIPA Canvas. Every team, and I've worked with teams from from different sites, what is hardware, software, you can describe their work in a holistic manner like this. Every team has customers. They're either inside the company or outside of the company, right? To those customers, it creates some outputs, whether it's pieces of code or emails, etc. And there are certain things, activities, what we call processes and projects that it does, whether it is writing the code, quality control, sales and marketing, right? Now, it is what the customer does with the outputs that constitutes the outcomes and impact. And one of the big problems that we face with OKRs is that people really don't know what to measure. If you can take 45 minutes with your team and create this SIPA canvas, then you solve the problem of silos. Because once you know that as, say, a marketing team, I have a customer within the company that is perhaps sales or maybe product management, right? Then you've started breaking down the walls of silos. Because then one of your results measures has to be something that matters, that creates an outcome or an impact for the customers, which you put in here. Then obviously, results metrics are, the things that happen once you're delivering value. But of course, if you want to be effective, because sometimes we have OKRs that have nothing to do with customers. For example, you might want to reduce the time it takes to launch a new feature from, say, 3 weeks down to 2 days, for example. That would be metrics around production. And so you have the block number 9 of the canvas that helps you do this. So this is how you create operational clarity. One page, everyone in the company understands how we create, deliver, and capture and measure value. Once you have this, the OKR that you create, if everyone on your company or your team is on the same level with this canvas, it's just 100%, 200% better than anything that you could brainstorm. And of course, that's why I come up with, the OKR Quality Matrix. What does a good OKR look like? One of the reasons I'm pretty sure that most AI cannot give you good OKRs because the examples that it's trained on online are really bad OKRs. So I invented the OKR Quality Matrix to help managers say, okay, fine, I have an OKR. How do I evaluate it? I've got the objective quality matrix. What does it align to? That's the first thing. And then is it aspirational? Aspirational, is it something that you like to wear on a t-shirt, or is it qualitative? And then of course the key results quality matrix, which is it a metric around tasks, outputs, milestones, outcome, or impact? And is it how quantifiable it is and how influenceable it is? And of course, I put the numbers there because when I work in engineering teams, they love the numbers. But for most companies, so most teams that use this, they just use the color coding. So if your key results falls in the red, you want to change it to and all of that. And once you have a good OKR, remember when I was listing the problems, one of the three problems I mentioned was that people said OKRs and forget them because OKRs bridge vision or strategy to results. So there's multiple levels. So there's what I call micro strategy. OKRs should not tell you what to do, but sometimes teams still need some kind of clarity around how to do that. And so my answer to that is the OKR Activation Canvas, where you start with your OKR and you brainstorm, okay, these are the necessary conditions, and then you come up with a system of activities, and then who are the people and the skills you need, and what budget support do you need, as well as the risks, blockers, and the leading indicators. This, for example, on one page enables you to create a unique delivery mechanism for every OKR. That way, you can be sure that the team's ability to deliver its OKR is a function of creativity and effort rather than the case of luck. And this is the answer, right? And once you do that, all that's left is for you to be a good manager, right? Are you checking in? Are you talking about OKRs in your one-on-one meetings? And this forms part of what I call the span OKR process, which is called to my consulting approach, is that you set up where you use the SIPA canvas, or you can use the business model canvas if you're an established company, or the lean canvas if you're an early stage startup. But what that does is, if OKRs provide strategic clarity at the level of the team, the SIPA canvas provides operational clarity at the level of the team. Then OKRs themselves, the OKR itself, if you use the OKR quality matrix, falls in what I call the prioritize phase. Yes, there are 1 million things that we could be measuring from here, but these are the three that we're going to try and improve over the next quarter. And as Guilherme said, remember, there are some people, even in the team or even in the company, whose job is not covered by OKRs. Yes, this bottom part of the canvas will tell you the kind of KPIs that they should be looking at, right? That are independent of OKRs. That way, you know that the company is balanced with respect to, delivering transformation as well as, doing the continuous improvement and keeping the lights on. And then we just talked about activation, which is how you create a micro strategy or unique delivery mechanism to make sure that your ability to actually transform that strategy into results is simply a function of your team's effort and their creativity and not of luck. And one part of that, especially this comes from the world of, Guilherme was saying how we have to draw from different perspectives, is from the world of Agile, is that think of most things that you're doing here as a bet, as an experiment, right? We don't know for a fact that this is going to work, right? So this is a bet canvas that helps you. Given an OKR, you can come up with a hypothesis, how this OKR is going to transform your outputs, whom for, and that's how you articulate the bet. Then that way, if you do this with your team, you've created a holistic system that starts to cover some of the weaknesses that we've seen with OKRs over the last 4 or 5 years.
That's amazing.
It's very interesting how you brought tools from other methodologies or other fields of knowledge into OKRs, right?
Yeah, I think we have a visual explanation of what OKRs are and how they can be applied. But particularly, I also wanted to know how AI can be leveraged. So, Guilherme, what do you think about it?
Okay. Yeah. OKRs. I mean, AI is everywhere now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's in practically every methodology, and even places that you don't expect there is AI, if not there already helping the process.
Mm-hmm.
It's being implemented, right? So when we talk about methodologies, it's just natural to assume that it's it's there also, right? Integrating and helping companies execute its processes.
Mm-hmm.
We've been looking and studying AI for a few years now, and we incorporated the large language models within our software. Mainly, the point that we used that adds more value is to use the large language models as a virtual consultant
Mm-hmm.
for the end user, because the end user is not a specialist in the methodologies, be it OKR or any other methodology. So he can use the AI. In our case, we call it Sophie, right? It or he or she, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we call her Sophie, and we embedded the AI in our software, throughout the software, at every point where we believe that the end user might need methodological support, like a coach or a consultant, to take the next step, right? So I can actually show this to you.
Sure.
And now I'll include, like, through the navigation I'll do in the software to show this. I'll also go through how we integrated methodologies and tools. That is the topic of the last few minutes here that we've been talking about. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
give that emphasis and show a little bit of the AI, right, of Sophie. So here we have our software. Okay, I just logged in. I'm CEO, so software is presenting to me a strategy map, right? This is a balanced scorecard map, right? But I can click on each of these objectives and drill down to cascade these objectives through the organization. So this, I have a very classical MBO look and feel to it, right? Where I have two KPIs and a project, where you can see like the S curve. So we have all the project management here, and the KPIs. I can also cascade them into different levels. And until I get to the operational level, or the last level, I have KPIs, right? And here I also have risks. So as I said in the beginning, we believe very much that management methodologies and tools should be integrated and not isolated. So here, an example of a risk attached to a KPI, right? And this KPI cascaded to the last level here of operational level KPIs, where you have all of the continuous improvement model in it. So another methodology that is integrated with strategy, integrated with project management, risk management, right? Um, so I can click on the KPI and ask to see the action plan, for example. So the details of what's being done to improve performance of this KPI, and the software will manage emails, notifications, integration with Teams, with Outlook, to engage the users with the uh, with the management model, right? I won't even mention methodology, because it's a connection of methodologies here. And everywhere we have this icon means that we can activate the AI or Sophie to help me, in this case, generate an action plan, right? But we can also go into the continuous improvement. So if I don't have a goal met, like I don't in this case, I can analyze what's going on through my Power BI dashboards or just generate the report of what's going on, like fact cause analysis. And on the causes, we have all the tools of cause analysis, brainstorming, prioritization, and again, the AI to help the end user identify why they're not meeting their goal. And finally, creating action plans so that next month you won't have the same bad result. So far, I didn't mention OKRs. I just mentioned a very traditional way of doing performance management in a corporation, right? But we can add OKRs to this mix as another tool to the tool set for the company to execute strategy and do um, performance management. So here, again, we have the AI to suggest objectives for my project, my team, and for these objectives, like in this case, reducing company's carbon footprint, you can have the key results, right? And again, all the check-ins for the key results, confidence level, initiatives that are being done. And if I want to use the AI again to help propose key results, I can do this. But again, as Mukom mentioned, the AI is not the expert in what's going on in the company.
Mm-hmm.
The person is the expert. The role of the AI here is to guide the person methodology-wise, right? So it is frustrating if you use this AI and expect, or any large language model, and expect them to, create a list of key results that will fit perfectly to your reality. Because the AI is not expert in your company. It's
Mm-hmm.
expert, it might be expert in the methodology. So the way we treat this is that they will ask questions, the AI will ask questions to the end user, so the end user might come up with the key results that make sense to their particular purpose, right? Um, so that's how we leverage large language models and AIs within the software and integrate um, OKRs with the rest of the management, the model or company management model, right? So you can click on an objective and ask to see what's connected to it. And I have the KPIs, I may have other objectives, I may have projects, and the same connection can be done with other elements of the software, like risks and so on. Okay.
Perfect.
All right, I think we're about to I think we have a timing issue, right, Julia? But I'd
Yeah,
like
we
to
only
answer some questions still from you.
sure. We only have 5 minutes left. We'll try to answer at least one or two questions that are here on Slido, and I will finish our meeting today with a few information. So if you can just wait a few more minutes for us, guys. If you could summarize, how should organizations determine the right cadence for their OKRs? So should it be quarterly, annually? What do you think?
So I'd say the quarterly cadence just makes sense to me because it aligns with, there's the concept of there's so many things that happens on a quarterly basis. And also because you have companies or customers that operate on a quarterly basis. So it helps to have that alignment. But if you're a manager, you're a team, you've been operating for 2 or 3 years, you understand the cycles around which you guys are able to get an input through to maybe a feature. And then you can use that to calibrate your cycle. So for example, there are teams that I've worked with that moved from a quarterly cycle to a 4-month cycle, because that just aligns with the kind of work that they tend to do, that it takes around 4 months to go from an input until we can have something that can start creating a value. That is at the team level.
Yeah, the opposite could be true as well. For very dynamic and not like CapEx intensive businesses, you may even shorten it, right? If you can achieve reasonable outcome in a shorter period, you might even not do it quarterly, maybe every 2 months or so. Right?
Yes. So the only wrong answer is, please don't do this on a weekly or monthly basis, because then it quickly leads to people just get drained and they're going to hit OKRs. And also the quality of each one month by month to start degrading.
Okay. And when do you have so many priorities, how do you pick the right OKRs, the right ones to focus on your OKRs? So the right priority.
That's quite simple. Look for the constraint, right? The reason I love when I talk about move from OKR to OKR process is simply because process is part of this whole systems thinking, that in every system, there's always one part that is a constraint of the system. Sometimes it's customer, sometimes it's the product, sometimes it's sales, sometimes it's marketing. And how would you know the constraint? The thing around which is lots of problems. Delays, complaints, repeat work, etc. That is the place where you should set your OKR.
Do you agree, Guilherme? Do you have any other perspective?
Yeah, the constraints are very, very clear usually, right? On what is the next hurdle you have to go through. And I'd actually connect that with the other question that is down here on how ambitious should companies be with their OKRs to make a real impact without overwhelming their teams. So how to prioritize, and this question for me makes sense in the same category, because I've been seeing people defining OKRs to teams that already have such a high delivery need just from routine processes, right? They are overwhelmed with their processes that have to run because they're the processes that generates their products and services their clients, right? And on top of that, put an OKR for transformation, a very challenging OKR for transformation, and that can be overwhelming, right? So if I just go straight to the answer here, how ambitious? OKRs should be ambitious because they should be motivational. But you have to balance if the team is exclusive for that, like the capacity of the team, right? Or am I asking, people that are already 95% at capacity, and on top of that, I create like a super ambitious goal for or objective for OKR? It can have the exact opposite effect. I can demotivate people, right? So this capacity analysis should be taken in consideration. Not not everybody have to have OKRs, right?
In fact, a practical tool that I use in this domain is to tell the teams I'm coaching only one OKR.
Yeah.
Because that forces, because I often like to say, any idiot can come up with 5 goals, 5 OKRs. But to come up with one is going to test everything that you guys have as a team, because you have to essentially no, 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 yes, to come down with one. One with just 3 key results. The process that is required to come down to one is going to temper, the risk of being too ambitious because you've made it too easy.
Awesome. Guys, we are reaching the end of our webinar. We won't be able to answer all the questions, but thanks a lot for you who sent the questions here. If you are still interested in getting more information, or if your question was not answered, we apologize, we just don't have enough time. But Mariana will be in touch with you, so you can also ask her, and she will give you all the answers that you need. And for us to just finish this meeting, I would like to remind you of our certificate of attendance. Mariana just sent the link in the chat. You can just fill the forms and you get the certificate. And also the possibility of a one-to-one session with Guilherme to learn more about Actio in your specific scenario. Mariana also sent the link. Mari, if you can resend that just so we have it. Thank you.
If you're on Twitter or LinkedIn and you still have questions, just DM them and post them at me. I'll help you answer them.
Yes, that's what I was about to say.
If you feel free to contact Mukom directly as well. It's his contact is right there. Sorry, Julia.
Yes.
I think you're about to say that.
Yes, if you want to talk to Mukom, you can access him via LinkedIn, which is his name. So if you just type it on LinkedIn, you can find his profile. He also has newsletter, coaching sessions, and consulting sessions that can help you with your OKRs. Mari also sent his Twitter and his website here in the chat for you to have easiest access to it. And lastly, I'd like to thank you all for your time, and I hope to see you in our next event. We will be talking about if your 2025 strategy is ready to deliver results. So don't miss on that, and I hope to see you all again.
All right. Thank you, Mukom.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. Bye-bye.